I married the man I deeply loved, and we finally became the couple I had always dreamed of. To make it even more perfect, we were having a beautiful wedding ceremony, surrounded by the blessings of family and friends. I felt so happy, thinking that even my parents, who had passed away, would be smiling from above. But I had no idea that a terrible event was waiting for me. I will never forgive those who ruined everything, and I am determined to get back at them. My name is Mary. When I was 27, my boyfriend Thomas, who was 2 years older, proposed to me. My father had died when I was young, and my mother passed away from illness 2 years ago. During my hardest times, Thomas supported me both physically and emotionally. We got married on the anniversary of our 2.5 years together, starting our happy life as newlyweds. Since Thomas was busy with work, we decided to wait until his schedule cleared up before holding the wedding ceremony. On his days off, we went to the wedding venue and started planning for the big day. We set the date and began making the guest list. I thought about inviting my aunt and uncle, who had been like parents to me after my father passed away. They brought me meals when my mother was busy working, kept me company so I wouldn't feel lonely, and helped with chores when my mother became sick. Even when things were difficult, they were always there for me, giving me hope. My aunt would reassure me, saying, "Your mom will get better, just believe and wait for her." Because of all they had done, I wanted them to sit in the family section on the bride's side at my wedding, so I visited them to tell them this. When I arrived, my aunt greeted me warmly, with tears in her eyes, saying, "Mary, congratulations on your marriage." I thanked her and then asked if they would sit in the family seats at my wedding. She agreed happily and then brought out a large box. "Mary, open this," she said. Inside was a beautiful, pure white wedding dress, made from elegant silk. It was a perfect mix of style and sweetness. The neckline was lined with delicate lace, and the dress had a lovely A-line shape with floral embroidery along the hem. It was clear that this dress had been custom-made just for me. Stunned, I asked, "Why, how did you get this?" My aunt explained that my mother had made it herself. Despite her illness, my mother had worked on this dress, sewing it day by day to fit my petite frame. She had asked my aunt to give it to me if I ever got married. This dress was filled with all the love my mother had left, created just for me in her final days. "Mary dear, you must wear this dress at your wedding. Your mother would be so pleased," my aunt said, her eyes filling with tears and a warm smile on her face. Her words touched me deeply, and I felt tears in my own eyes. "Thank you, Auntie, for keeping it safe all this time. I promise I'll wear this dress at my wedding. You have to come and see me in it," I replied, holding the dress my mother had lovingly made. When I got home, I hung the dress on my bedroom wall and looked at it with determination. I was set on making my wedding a success. Wearing this dress in memory of my mother, the feeling only grew stronger as the days went by. Then one day, disaster struck. I came home from work and noticed that the dress, which should have been hanging on my wall, was gone. "What? It's gone? Why? I left it right here." I panicked and pulled out my phone to call the police. Just then, my husband walked in. "Oh, Mary, what's wrong?" he asked, seeing my tears and sensing something was wrong. My dress is gone. I had it hanging right here. I think someone stole it," I cried, but his reaction took me by surprise. "Oh, is that it?" he said casually. "What do you mean, Thomas? Do you know something?" I asked, confused. His answer shocked me. "Of course, my sister said she's getting married soon and wanted to borrow your dress." What? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Yes, I mentioned the dress to her, and she asked if she could borrow it. I thought it'd be fine, so I agreed. She came over and picked it up, using the spare key from our mailbox. He had lent my precious wedding dress to his sister without even asking me. I felt anger building up inside me. "What the hell, Thomas? That dress was handmade by my mother, specifically for me. Didn't I tell you that? It's perfectly tailored to my size. How could you lend it out without asking?" "Calm down," he said, waving his hand dismissively. "It's not like it's a one-time use thing. You can still wear it. What's the big deal? Our wedding is still a while away, and my sister was happy she wouldn't have to buy a dress." I was furious. "That's not the point. I never gave permission for this. That dress is special. It was meant for me to wear first. Why would you let your sister wear it before I even get to?" Even after all my explanations, he still didn't seem to understand my feelings. I tried to explain why I was so upset, but my husband refused to apologize or even admit he was wrong. Instead, he sighed in frustration and said, "Mary, you're being too petty. Stop acting like a spoiled child. Petty? Spoiled? I thought, anger flaring up inside me. I was upset because this dress was something my mother had made for me. It was meant for me, not for my sister-in-law. I was done with his careless comments that completely dismissed my feelings. I'm going to your parents' house tomorrow to get my dress back from your sister, I said firmly. What, tomorrow? My sister's fiancé and his parents are coming over then, he said, sounding annoyed. Don't interrupt them. Interrupt? You've got some nerve. Let me be clear, no one will convince me to let your sister wear that dress, I replied. The next day, I took off work and went to my in-laws' house. As I walked up to the open front door, I could hear lively voices inside. Quietly stepping in, I listened from nearby. Wow, you made this dress yourself? That's amazing, Cynthia, said a man's voice, who I assumed was Cynthia's fiancé. Oh, it's nothing like that, she replied, pretending to be humble. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was flaunting my mother's handmade wedding dress, claiming it as her own. It took a lot of time, but I really wanted my dream dress for my wedding, so I ended up making it myself, she continued. At that moment, something inside me snapped. Her dream dress? This was the dress my mother had poured her love into, just for me. Before I even realized it, I had walked into the room and grabbed the dress from my sister-in-law's hands. This is mine, I shouted, my voice shaking with anger. Everyone turned to me, startled. My father-in-law looked shocked and asked, "Whoa, Mary, what's going on?" Ignoring him, I looked straight at Cynthia and revealed the truth to everyone. This dress was handmade by my mother, just for me. Your daughter took it from my room without asking. Everyone stared at me in disbelief, their eyes wide. Cynthia, on the other hand, looked pale. Cynthia, is this true? Her fiancé asked, his voice filled with disbelief. Desperate to cover it up, Cynthia tried to protest. No, it's not like that. I really did make this myself. I realized we wouldn't get anywhere with more arguing, so I challenged her. Why don't you try it on then? Since my mother made it to fit me, I don't think it will fit you. Cynthia was taller and more toned than I was. There was no way the dress would fit her. Cynthia was trying her best to fit into the dress, which was clearly made for my smaller frame. Just then, my husband arrived, his face red with anger. Mary, what are you doing? Are you trying to ruin my sister's wedding? He shouted. What are you talking about? I shot back. If anyone's wedding is being ruined, it's mine. Ignoring my frustration, he went on to say something even more shocking. Shut up, we cancelled our wedding, so just give the dress to my sister. Cancelled? What do you mean? I asked, stunned. That's right, he replied firmly. My sister said she's short on money, so we gave her the $50,000 we'd saved for our wedding. Since there's no wedding anymore, we don't need the dress, right? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He had lent my dress to his sister without asking, cancelled our wedding, and even gave away our savings. It was as if our marriage meant nothing to him. Realizing how little he valued us, I felt my love for him fading. Seeing my silence, he assumed he had won. Now, give that dress back to my sister, he demanded. You have no objections to cancelling, right? Fine, I replied calmly. Let's get a divorce then. Huh? My husband looked completely taken aback. You heard me, I want a divorce. I can't be with someone who tramples on people's feelings so easily, I said firmly. Wait, what? Divorce? That's ridiculous, he stammered, panicked. But I was done. I turned to leave, holding the dress tightly. Just then, Cynthia grabbed the end of the dress, pulling it hard. The dress tore, leaving it in a ruined state. My husband and Cynthia burst out laughing as if they found it hilarious. Serves you right, Mary, she sneered. This wouldn't have happened if you'd just lent me the dress quietly. You brought this on yourself. I felt tears fill my eyes, not because the wedding was cancelled, but because this precious dress, made by my mother, was now destroyed. It was something I wanted to keep forever, and now these awful people had ruined it. At that moment, Cynthia's fiancé stood up and spoke quietly. I guess we're done, too. Everyone turned to look at him in shock. Wait, are you serious? Cynthia cried, panicking. You're calling off our engagement? Why? He looked at her with a stern, disappointed expression. Why? It's simple. I can't marry someone who would do something so thoughtless and cruel without hesitation. Even his parents seemed to share his disappointment, looking at her with quiet disapproval. As Cynthia's fiancé and his parents were getting ready to leave, Cynthia frantically yelled, "Wait a minute, It's ridiculous to end our engagement over something like this, right, Mom, Dad, don't you agree? But her pleas didn't change anything. Her parents just looked at her with disappointment. Wait, Mom, Dad, why are you looking at me like that? She asked, panicking. Her father suddenly shouted, "Get out, you're a disgrace." Even Cynthia, usually so confident, began to cry under his harsh words. "You're so cruel, this is too much," she sobbed. "Stop crying," her father said. "I didn't raise someone who could treat others' feelings so carelessly. I don't even recognize you as my daughter right now." As Cynthia broke down in tears, my husband tried to step in. "Dad, Mom, please don't be so hard on her. She didn't mean it that way." But his father turned on him as well. "You too, Thomas? You completely disregarded Mary's feelings. Get out of this house along with Cynthia, you foolish son." Stunned, my husband just stood there, speechless. He had never expected his own parents to turn against him. Then my mother-in-law came over to me, bowing her head in apology. "I'm so sorry, Mary. We believed our daughter when she said she'd made the dress herself. We had no idea." "It's okay," I replied, trying to stay calm, "but I can't stay married to Thomas anymore." "That's understandable," she said gently. "It's our daughter's fault, and we don't want you to worry about this any longer. Go on and live your life in peace." Her words touched me deeply. My in-laws had always been very kind to me, and I knew this was hard on them too. I felt a bit guilty that things had come to this, but I knew I couldn't stay with Thomas anymore. "Mary, I'm sorry, let's have a real wedding, just don't file for divorce yet," he pleaded, realizing how serious things were only after being disowned by his parents. But I was done. I couldn't go back to someone who had shown me such disrespect. "I'll live my own life. I can be happy without you," I replied firmly. Hearing this, Thomas collapsed to his knees in defeat. After thanking my in-laws for their kindness, I left their house. I packed my things and moved to my aunt's house. She was surprised by everything that happened, but she respected my feelings and welcomed me with open arms. My aunt even managed to mend the torn parts of my mother's dress, bringing it back to its original beauty. After that, I filed for divorce and requested alimony from Thomas. Since he had secretly given our wedding savings to his sister, I was able to get a bit more because of that. Since being disowned, my ex-husband and sister-in-law are now living together in the home we once shared. My sister-in-law, who had planned to be a housewife after marriage, is now unemployed, and Thomas has to cover both of their expenses. In the future, if I ever get another chance to marry, I'll be sure to choose my partner carefully, and when I do have that wedding, I'll proudly wear my mother's handmade wedding dress.